What's up guys and welcome back to On the Brick with another episode of On the MOC. Before we get into this week's episode, I did want to explain something really quick because last week a few of you asked why did I focus on one single designer when I clearly have a backlog to go through. And the short answer is that I am actually going in order, and those were all submitted one right after the other. I think I mentioned this, but Bit and Lieutenant Colonel Vandalor have submitted more MOCs than anyone else by far. In fact, I intentionally did not include any of Bit's models in this week's episode, but that meant skipping past 7 more of his builds. Now, eventually I will show them, but just not this week. So please note that I do plan to get to every submission, it might just take some time. With that said, let's start this week's episode with this MOC, which I think is titled A Universal Carrier Mark 1 or 2 Exploding. And this comes from the designer Bottle. They say it took 2 hours just to position the shrapnel, smoke, and figures, and of course damage the vehicle and all that, and it has a total of 430 pieces. Now, I actually don't know anything about tanks, so I had to look this up, and Universal Carrier is actually the name of the tank, which is really unimaginative, but also kind of cool. I also really like that he took the time to get all these figures dressed appropriately, gave them the correct ammo, or not ammo, guns, and also just like pose them instead of just having them stand there. If you've ever worked with studio, you know this took the time it said it took him. It's not like it's necessarily hard to position any of this stuff, but it is time consuming and definitely annoying. This thing is definitely a little chaotic, but it's an explosion, so of course it would be. And my favorite touch, even though it's extremely morbid, is the skeleton representing the dead guy in the tank. This is a very well-made build. Up next is a build called Dreamhouse, coming from Chars. He's definitely been on this channel as well before. They say this has around 1,000 pieces, but they're not sure exactly how many, and it took him about 6 hours on and off, plus an additional hour just for the side yard. And he also included the dimensions being 15 by 10 by 10.5 inches, which is pretty big. This is also probably one of the more unique builds I've ever shown on this channel, seeing how it's just a house and not like a spaceship or a tank or anything like that. It even has a full interior with separate rooms. There's bathrooms, bedrooms, even a staircase that Figs can actually walk up on. And I have to assume this is the attic, which would make sense. I also love the use of the little patio with the umbrella on the side. I think that's really cool too. And I even like the giant windows on the front door there, which personally creep me out a little bit if it was to be my home. However, on this build looks really nice. I actually really like the inclusion of this bookshelf up here too, which is really cool. And then of course the kitchen and even like the dog and everything. There is a lot of thought and a lot of details in this build, especially for something that fits on an entire base plate. Up next, we have 2 MOCs from the same designer called Empire. The first is this Imperial Factory. This contains 115 pieces and 152 if you include the minifigures. It has 3 separate floors that can each be detached. This is like the exact opposite of the last build, being significantly smaller, of course, however, still looks good. I've said countless times that I like these types of builds that are really just meant to be like display pieces for minifigures, and this is no exception. I do like the 3 levels here and the differences between them, and also the hints of lava and soot on the bottom level there. I can't actually tell if this is just a render or actually built in person and then edited, so I don't know how stable that top level is, but being Lego, I'm sure it's perfectly fine. The second build that Empire submitted is this Batmobile. It contains 236 pieces and costs about 20 pounds, which is around $27 US at the time of making this video. This build does come with Batman and Robin, and he says it includes a removable bonnet, which I believe is the trunk, which reveals the engine. There is also an easily removable roof so you can actually fit the minifigures inside. Let me start by saying that I actually really do enjoy this particular render of it. I think this is really cool. And overall, I do really like the design of this. It's sleek, small, and it looks to be fast. The only thing is, I do wish you had actually included renders of the open areas so we could see the engine or we could see the roof off. But that doesn't take away from this at all. It still looks really cool. This next one is a single picture. It's what you're seeing on screen here. And I actually debated for a while if I wanted to show this on here. But this comes from the designer Capotri, who has been a part of my Discord for long enough that the least I can do is include this. And this is his entire arsenal so far from the video game CSGO. The top right includes 277 parts, the middle 423, the knife 84, the middle right is 190, and the far left is 1016. He did not include the name of any of these weapons, and I personally don't play CSGO, so I don't really know them. I do know pretty much what some of them are just from general knowledge though. And I will say that these are pretty accurate representations of what we see in the game. Do keep in mind, this is not something that I really plan to show off too much on my channel though. Up next is Lieutenant Colonel Vandalor with 2 MOCs of his own. If that sounds familiar, he did have a full video of his own as well with all his tanks and stuff. Yeah, I get how that's a weird statement to say after the last one. This is a 1/35th scale full interior Matilda Mark III. It features a full interior, as I said, including the turret basket and the breech for the main gun. In theory, he says, the track should be able to roll, the gun should be able to elevate and depress, and there's a full engine and gearbox. This took him about a week to build and has 643 parts, including the minifigures. And if you've seen any of his tanks, then you know what this guy can do. He is very talented when it comes to this stuff and really does make them look as accurate and as good as he can. All of these do include interiors, and they are all at the same scale as well, which is what I really like because, again, I do like comparing things to each other. It's always surprising just how small a lot of the early tanks used to be, and in a way still kind of are. I mean, these guys were absolutely cramped in there. I don't know if Lieutenant Colonel has been able to actually make any of his builds in real life yet, but hopefully one day he will. His second submission for today though is this 1/35th scale 5519 Intercontinental Ballistic Missile with inner workings. This is actually pretty big at 1,743 pieces, and that does include the minifigure standing next to it. It took him 4 hours to design, and he says he's really happy with the result, and I also think it looks cool. If you don't know, intercontinental ballistic missiles were actually the predecessors to rockets, and were actually used as very early rockets for a while too. I love that we can see inside of this thing, and it reminds me of what the actual idea for the Saturn V rocket Lego set was. Because again, if you don't know, it was supposed to be like the full interior workings of the Saturn V instead of just what we got. Which, don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining about what we got. It's a pretty simple build relatively, but it also shows that Lieutenant Colonel does know a little bit more about what he's building instead of just that they look cool. He went and he made sure that this was as the actual rocket was. I'm recording this way later than I usually do, so I have no idea if that sentence makes any sense. Point being, for something that looks incredibly simple, it's still a really cool build. And lastly is yet again another twofer. However, both of these actually do go together, as it is Obi-Wan and Plo-Kun's Jedi Starfighters. Both of these come from the designer Truffles, who has also shown up on this channel before. This Obi-Wan version has 291 pieces and took about an hour and a half to build, while the Plo-Kun version does have more pieces at 308 and also took about an hour, on top of Obi-Wan's work, so about 2 hours for Plo-Kun's version. Both of these are fully buildable, and I think they're intended to be minifig scale, which would make sense because they are pretty small, and they also look cool. very, very fragile, I have to say. Builds that are this small and intricate usually are, but it's possible that it isn't fragile at all. Personally, I like Plo-Kun's better just because of the colors and the intricate designs on it. I do think it looks really cool, and I know some people are gonna say that it might be a little too tall. However, it's actually pretty accurate to what the actual vehicles look like. Both of these are pretty well done, and I do generally like how both of them came out. But as always, I would love to know what you guys think. Which of the MOCs was your favorite from this week? And to let me know in the comments down below. I am having so much trouble speaking right now. Remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already, as that does help me out a whole ton, or check out my Patreon if you want to take that extra step and really help me out, like the people you see on screen, especially people like Jonathan and Project Elements. Please remember that in 2 weeks there will not be an On the Mock for the reasons stated in the important announcement video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time.